We are back, and before I introduce my next guest, let me just say we thank all of our sponsors. And if you'd like to be a sponsor, please contact us 706-889-9700 or chief@fetchernews.com. The UPS store of East LJ, the UPS store of East LJ. And also, we want to thank One Source Business Products over at Highland Square. That's in the East LJ Walmart Shopping Center. We want to thank One Source Business Products because tomorrow, FetcherNews.com, this weekend, graduation, Gilmer, Fannin, and Pickens. We take about 1,000 pictures. Yes, we do. We will take 1,000 pictures of the graduates. We put them on Facebook, no charge. They belong to the kids, the parents, the grandchildren. And we put a tag on all your windshields telling you where to go to find those pictures. So when you come out of graduation, you see a little tag that says, "Congratulations, 2016 graduates." Go to FetcherNews.com and see your pictures. That'll be on there so you will know, or your grandparents or your visitors will know where to get the pictures. And we want to thank One Source Business Products over in the Highland Square for printing those for us for graduation this weekend. We look forward to that. The future of our nation, the 2016 graduates. And don't forget, North Georgia Diamond. North Georgia Diamond is located in the East LJ Walmart Shopping Center. Go over there today. Get something nice for your graduate. I know Bill and Allison probably has a lot of nice things in stock for your 2016 graduate over there at North Georgia Diamond. Promotional code FetcherNews.com, East LJ Walmart Shopping Center. Now, before we start with our next guest, we want to make sure all of our viewers know that State Senator Steve Gooch was invited this morning. We tried to set this up probably about 3 weeks ago to try to accommodate everybody's schedule. We were going to have State Senator Steve Gooch and his opponent here, Mr. John Williamson, and we were going to have a debate-style discussion for about 40 minutes. Due to scheduling conflicts, Mr. Gooch is not able to be here this morning. So my guest now is candidate for Georgia State Senate Seat 51, John Williamson. Mr. Williamson, how are you today?
Very good. Thank you, Brian, for having me.
I have my first question to you is one, we're an internet business, so when we do the social media, we try to get through social media, Twitter and Facebook. We try to get information to our viewers all the time. And I am seeing you everywhere. And I mean everywhere. I said to somebody the other day, they said, "How do you think Mr. Williamson is doing in the campaign?" I said, "I really don't know. We don't have, tracking polls at Fetcher News. We just don't have that." Or in this, I said, "But I will say this: the old expression, he's not letting any grass grow under his feet. I see you everywhere." What I want to know, and I want the viewers to know, is you have been out in the district and you've been canvassing the district. Tell us a little bit before we get into policy and stuff about some of the people you've met. What you think you're hearing in the district, because if you want to represent the district, you have to get out, you have to visit the people, and you have to hear them, because that's who you would go to Atlanta and represent. So tell us a little bit about going out and visiting these different areas.
Well, we have been. We've been going out through the whole district, and we've actually been visiting a number of people, both the commissioners. We've been going to the forums of the commissioners that are applying for the positions and running for office and listening to their concerns and why they're running. We've talking to the blue-collar workers, with the working man. We've been to a number of places, the gas stations, and you talk to the average folks and you hear what they have to say. So we really have two issues that I see in the 51st District. We have, first of all, we have the issues that we hear from the politicians, the county commissioners, the Chamber of Commerce, is that they would like to see more jobs and that they are struggling economically and they would like to have a bigger tax base. So you hear that. But on the other hand, from the working class people, you typically hear that they are disenchanted with the leaderships that they see both in Atlanta and Washington. And they feel like a lot of us do, betrayed, that they send legislators to their offices and they promise one thing and they do something else. So there's a underground feeling among, as far as I can see, the average person that we've been talking to, is that they just don't like the way things are going, that they do see taxes increasing and they feel it, and they would like to see a change.
Let me ask you a question. The first time you were here, we discussed your reasons for getting into the race. And we discussed that. But now that the campaign is in full swing and Tuesday is election day, Are you feeling more validated for the reasons you got in? Are you feeling like, there's the day probably when a candidate says, I'm going to run, and then when they get out in the district and start visiting people, it's encouraging or it validates their reasons. How has that happened? How's that evolved for you?
Well, that's a good question, because that's what I did the other night. I looked back at the original, what I put up on the webpage for my reasons for running, and I looked at it, and it was as true today as it was then. It's exactly as I've described it. We have higher taxes than we've ever had by a person that said that they weren't going to raise taxes, and we see an overreaching influence of the Chamber of Commerce and the lobbyists in Atlanta that is driving the direction of our legislators. We're seeing that happen, and it's a reality. And we also see intimidation by the entrenched incumbents. So that's real.
Well, one thing you brought up, and I want clarification from you, or I want to clarify something that when you say Chamber of Commerce, now fetchernews.com, we for as many things that people see us do politically, our business model is really to be a part of communities. If we're in Pickens, if we're in Dawson, if we're in Gilmer, to be a part of the community. So we are members of the local Chamber of Commerce. And we do a lot of things where our local Chamber of Commerce, and they're very, very active in their communities. So are you differentiating between the local chambers or the chamber we hear downtown Atlanta and national chambers?
That's a good point, Brian, because you're absolutely right. I should have clarified that. We really do mean the Atlanta Chamber of Commerce, and I agree with what you just said. When you talk to the local Chamber of Commerce across the 51st District, they have an agenda quite different than the Atlanta Chamber of Commerce. So I'm talking about the Atlanta Chamber of Commerce that is really focused on in Atlanta and what they can get done in Atlanta and how to promote their agendas.
Well, I probably shouldn't say this, but then that wouldn't be me, right? If I don't always say something I shouldn't say, then you would be concerned that it was really me. But I think sometimes the governor waits for Delta or Home Depot to call before he writes his statement. So that's just me. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have said that. I think sometimes the governor waits for Delta to call and tell him what his statement is. But just say. Now, in the district, I have gotten to know Senator Steve Gooch very well. I feel our company, myself, have a good relationship with the senator, and he is campaigning that he's cut taxes or been a part of cutting taxes, a part of cutting overhead in Atlanta, a part of balancing the budget and genuine conservative values for his district. So how do you take issue with that? And what particularly do you take issue with?
Well, let me be clear that we've had a good relationship with Senator Gooch. We've been in the Tea Party for a number of years. He's come and visited with us and listened to us and told us what he was doing. And he seems like a nice man. But the problem that I have is that you have to judge a legislator by what he does, all right, and the actions that he's taken. And that's where he and I depart ways. The issues that you just mentioned, cut taxes. Well, I investigated that because I said that sounds like a great thing. But when you say you cut taxes on one hand and you raise taxes $1 billion on the other hand, and you've cut taxes an average of 100 or 200 per person, per citizen on the other hand, to me that doesn't seem like a real tax cut. So that's the dichotomy that I see and the challenge that I see, and that a lot of the things that are said when tax cuts, when we talked about the ad valorem tax, for instance, how the birthday tax has been taken away, well, what they didn't tell you is that when that was removed and you only pay the 7% tax when you purchase a vehicle and you don't have an annual fee for your license, they didn't tell you at the same time that they are now taxing private sales of automobiles, so that when you and your neighbors exchange vehicles, you do have to pay 7%, not only on what you paid your neighbor for it, but also for the Blue Book value when you buy it. Now, this has hurt our businesses, the small businesses in particular. I think of my son who bought a $20,000 work truck for his business. He's a small businessman, and he bought it from a friend, and he went down to register it, and he paid 7%, sure enough, but not on $20,000, but they said it was worth $30,000. So he paid 7% on $30,000 that he never would have had to pay before 2012 in the ad valorem tax reform. The other part of this is that when people move into the state, they also are subject to the 7% tax on the Blue Book value of their vehicles. Now you say, well, we don't really care, it doesn't really matter. Well, it seems to matter enough to Mercedes-Benz because they got an exception, from what I understand, from that tax when they move into Georgia with their employees. So there's a couple of examples of how taxes have in fact been increased.
You know, I have to say for those that are, I'm hoping that people know me well enough that I would challenge you at this time if I felt there was something incorrect. And I'm not validating, but I would challenge. And there's something to be said about that, because the ad valorem tax is something that businesses move in. And if they are bringing 1,000 people, and their cars ad valorem tax, if you move to Georgia from Illinois, if you move to Georgia because we bring a business from New Jersey, and your employees move and you say you got to move, say, yeah, okay, well, I got 3 cars. Well, they're going to be $2,500 a piece. So for me to move to Georgia cost me $7,500 to title 3 cars. This is valid. This is valid information. So what you're telling me is people like Mercedes to move and say, we'll bring these people, they're getting an exemption to move in the state?
That's what I understand. And
they're getting an exemption on the ad valorem tax? To move in the
exemption on that 7% registration of the vehicles, so when they pay it, yeah, ad valorem tax. And that just indicates that some people feel that it is a burden on moving into the state, that's all.
Well, I'm not going to say it's not true. I got to look that up today, because I have to say you're hitting a very big point, that because if you just move here, if you got a job and you're on a website and you got a job and somebody said, hey, if you'll move from North Carolina or you'll move from Florida up here, go to work. If you just move here and you're not the big guy, you're going to pay that tax.
Yes, you are. I've talked to several people. That's really a hot point when I talk in the district about the taxes that have been increased. I mean, this is real for them. And they said, oh, yeah, I had a friend who just moved here, and he had to pay $3,500 to move to Georgia to register his car. I mean, this is validated time and time again by people that I talk to.
Well, I think the concern I would have, and we'll move on from that, would be people moving here from other states and trying to maintain their out-of-state tag to prevent from paying the money, and that's a problem in itself. So, okay, the ad valorem tax. What other ways do you feel in your campaign on the 51st District? I want to stay on that, and this is pertaining to the district. I want to stay on the district because sometimes people get sidetracked. In the 51st District, the people that you're talking about in taxes and other things, what are some of the other things that you feel they need representation in Atlanta that you feel they're not getting, or they're telling you they're not getting in Atlanta?
Yeah, well, the primary reason that I got involved, of course, was taxation, and I don't want to continue to focus on that entirely. It's not a one-horse campaign, but that's the one that seems to get the most attention from our citizens. And so that's why I bring up these things, especially when the senator is telling us that he's cut taxes, and he mentions cutting taxes that didn't exist, such as the inheritance or the death tax. I talked to my accountant and tax attorney, and he said, no, they haven't had to pay a tax since 2005 and before. So these are the issues, the clarifications that I've tried to make to try to bring some integrity to the campaign. Is that let's get down to the real issues. Now, one of the real issues, as far as I'm concerned, is fiscal responsibility, and that is that people don't talk about the debt burden that Georgia is placing on its citizens. You think that you balance the budget. Well, you can balance the budget in federal law, or in government, by borrowing money, like a general obligation or revenue bonds, one or the other, and that's what we call off balance sheet. So that will help you balance your budget, and you can continue to spend. And the issue here is that if you look at the average debt per Georgia citizen, the average debt has doubled in the last 10 years. And why has it doubled? That's a debt. That's because we're borrowing money, all right? So this is a problem. And the question that I have is that why isn't this made transparent to the average citizen, how much debt we are accruing? So that's one issue. Then we also talk about tax reform. There's a lot of things that need to be done in the state. The Senate actually passed a tax reform bill of 5.4% flat tax. And that's okay, and that's supposedly should be good for attracting people coming into the state, businesses, a lower tax. But then the question is that you need to score that. How much is it going to cost the average citizen? How much is it going to cost the budget? And does it do any good for the working people? These are decisions that have to be made, and I'm certainly willing to think that the public should have a input on that. So that's another issue that needs to be addressed. And then we talk about subsidies, and there's a very, very sensitive issue that we have here in Gilmer County and across the district, and that's in terms of rural hospitals. And then the issue is that the state is proposing that they provide corporate subsidies for failing hospitals. But to my point of view is that this is like another Solyndra. How do we spend our money? Can we continue to support failing industries? There has to be another solution other than just throwing money at a problem to trying to resolve it. That's only temporary. So these are big issues that need to be addressed and can be addressed.
So instead of subsidizing, figure out why they're failing in the first place.
That's exactly right. And I'll use a little example about how I look at life and decision making, and that's the story of how the psychiatrists used to test their patients and see how they were progressing. And what they did is they had an empty room, and in the room was a sink and a faucet and a mop and a bucket. The stopper was in the sink and the water was running, and they'd put the patient into the room, close the door, and see what they would do. Well, the patient went over and picked up the mop and the bucket and started mopping up the floor because the sink was overflowing. Then they needed additional help. But if they went into the room and they turned off the faucet or pulled the plug, then they were moved to the next level. So my point is that when you're looking at decisions, are you mopping up the floor or are you going over and trying to turn off the faucet? That's the way I look at life. And
well, let's move to a couple other things here. As you said, the campaign is not and we'll come back to that, but you're saying the campaign is not a one-issue campaign in taxes. This is one of the strongest issues you have discussed everywhere you've gone. Let's look at this. Senator Gooch, available to the people, supported the RIFA, Religious Liberty Bill, supported campus carry, supported I call it the firefighter bill. He has shown a lot of support in some of the issues that mostly concern North Georgia or his district, his voters in. I mean, how do you not question that? But he's shown that support in North Georgia to the people. What do you say to that?
Well, look. One can't criticize the entire operation or the entire work of the senator that we sent to Atlanta. Yes, he has supported these issues that you just mentioned. The question is, how actively has he supported them? And that's one of the jobs that you have as a legislature. You were sent to Atlanta to represent the people, and you need to know what their concerns are. So I have no problem with that. But I guess that what I am concerned about on the other issues other than taxation is the ability to stand up and be counted and to aggressively fight for the issues. Now, you can sign on to all the bills that you want to that sound good, and that's fine, and I appreciate that, and if you decide to do that, that's good. But what I'm looking to do is to stand up and fight for bills that we need here in North Georgia and statewide that represent the people. And of course, the one that you haven't gotten to yet, of course, is the transgender issue that is generating so much interest in North Georgia. And I know that both you and I were at the Fannin County Board of Education meeting when they had 2,000 or 3,000 upset parents, and they were concerned about this whole transgender bathroom issue. And I didn't see our representatives there, but I did hear that both our governor and our representative and our senator have signed on to a letter to the federal government saying that they really don't like this and please help us out. But my point is this is a state issue. This is a state issue. We've seen examples of North Carolina and Texas and other states that have stood up to the federal government. And to me, we shouldn't go crying to Washington and saying stop. We've got the authority to do that locally if we'd only stand up to do that. And I think that's one of the things that Americans are concerned about now is legislatures that will stand up and fight on principle and fight for what's right. If I went to the legislature, if I go to this legislature, certainly the first thing that I do, or one of the first things I'll do, is make sure that there is a appropriate bathroom bill, such as North Carolina or Texas, that we submit in the legislature. Senator Josh McCoon is already talking about that. We need to get that done and start it and see where it goes and see who in the state of Georgia is not supporting the people's desires.
All right, let me get this straight, because you put a lot of things there together at one time. I talked about the state senator, Steve Gooch, supporting what I call popular issues in his district. You kindly defined the difference in fighting for an issue and signing on to an issue. Did I hear that correctly?
That's correct.
Okay. So I guess without your opponent being here, are you saying more that you see the senator as the kind of person that signs on to things that he sees are appropriate or popular in his district, but not quite the fighter for some of these issues? I mean, are you differentiating that you won't just sign on, you'll go to the video cameras just like Josh McCoon and give the reasons why you're fighting for them?
Absolutely, and then go to the media and any other outlet that can promote the issues that we're fighting for. That's right.
You know, Josh McCoon may get upset to find out that somebody may come down there and get the microphone at Channel 2 and Channel 5 like he does. You know, we'll have to clear it with him because he's, you know, he actually he's a friend of mine, and we're all friends, and this is great. We're not getting ugly or derogatory, you know, but Senator McCoon is a friend, so I'm making a nice little joke. You know, I understand he brings 3 suits a day.
Really?
Yeah, I understand he brings 3 suits so he can do a morning interview, an afternoon, and one for the way home, because he doesn't want Channel 2, the people that watch the first morning one, to think he was in the same suits all day. I'm sorry, Senator Josh McCoon, I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble. But anyhow, that being said, so...
Can I finish the thoughts here for a minute?
Sure. Go right ahead.
The issue is that Senator Gooch, in fact, did stand up and fight for the transportation funding bill. There's no question that he fought for that. He came out of the DOT, and he was in charge of the Transportation Committee, and it really brought to life and fought for the Transportation Funding Act, which not only supposedly helps our roads, that we can talk about how much they needed another time, but right now that was a big tax increase. Now, what I object to is the lack of transparency. In other words, if I had done that, I would have come here, and how many commissioners, county commissioners, know that a part of that bill means that they're going to pay another $35,000 in gas taxes for their vehicles, their county vehicles? How many Board of Educations know that they are going to pay another $100 a year just to license every bus that they own and heavy equipment in the county the same way? I would have told the motel owners, you're going to get a $5 surcharge, period. And so, I'm sorry, but it's for the good cause. But none of that has been presented to our citizens so that they can understand it and make decisions based on the reality of the legislation that's being passed.
I want to keep this in the 51st district, but I don't want to move past this. You did bring this up. I'm not going to challenge the senator's letter. Now, there were so many senators in the state that sent a letter encouraging, and I don't like that, but they encouraging the governor and the attorney general of the state to do something concerning the bathroom issue in Title IX and federal funding. Basically, the federal government telling us what we can and can't do, and state rights versus federal rights. Now, that he signed on to that letter, and the governor has issued a very lukewarm response to this, very lukewarm, and he actually put it on, and I think that citizens should know this, he actually put it on the state school superintendent's plate. In all fairness to Richard Woods, he's powerless in this. I mean, to hear the governor move it over to his plate and tell him to work with the 188 school districts in the state of Georgia, he's powerless. So you would go and work with somebody to write it, have it written, ready to go, a bill, I'm going to hear this correct, that would parallel what North Carolina's done to get it passed through the Senate, the House, and try to get it on the governor's desk?
Yeah, that's right. It wouldn't be exactly the same as in North Carolina. There's a couple of issues that could be addressed there, but yes, that's exactly right. Is that rather than write a letter, we have the power. The Senate, the legislature has the power to make decisions and to introduce legislation to control our future. And that, to me, should be done. I've seen so many of our politicians, especially on the national level, I'm sorry to talk about that, but they send letters to the president saying, I don't like the way you're treating our VA people. I don't like this, I don't like that. But they're not doing anything about it. So writing letters to me is pointless. You need to back it up with some action and take action that you have a legitimate right to do.
Well, I'm going to say, folks, the 51st District, I'm going to step out and call it the 51st District, but I know in Fannin County, they're not pleased with it. And I think it may be a tipping point for bigger things nationally that come.
I agree, Brian. I mean, when you look at this and the invasion of our bathrooms by the federal law, I mean, when is enough enough? We've let the Bibles get out of school, okay, because one person objected. We're just, this one thing after another we're letting happen to us, and nobody is saying no, no, no. It's the old frog in the water. You know, you just keep turning up the heat, and the frog just sits there until finally he's boiled. And that's what we're doing in this country, and I believe that's why there's so much support and grassroots support for the politically incorrect leaders that we see coming to the front.
A couple more things before we wrap up. We got about 5 or 6 more minutes here. And I'm trying to stay in the 51st District, and I'm glad we're doing that because that's what you're running for. Now, obviously, I'm not going to mention any names, and I'm not for a reason because I respect these gentlemen. And the county chairman of these counties, the commission chair, they have a tough job, and people don't know it. And I have sat in with county chairmen, plural. I've sat with several and shut the door. And the stack on the left side of their desk sometimes is this high, if you can see it. And those are things from the state that they have to go through. And I have asked several, are you tired of the federal government? And I have gotten response, federal government? You just don't know what we're up against just trying to fend off, my words, the state on a daily basis. That is who our back. And these are the counties. These are the people that they're supposed to go to Atlanta for. Now, I'm not saying that they're not. You understand where I'm going with that? But if elected, can you guarantee, and I say guarantee because that's the big word, can you guarantee availability of yourself to the, not just all the people, but to every chairman of every county in the district? And can you make a commitment today that you will visit some of their county meetings, their meetings? Can you make a commitment to those chairmen today that you will hear them, listen to them, and go to Atlanta? And I'm going to say fight for them.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what I've already started doing. All right. There's some we haven't been able to get in front of the chairmen of the county commissioners, but most of them we have, and some of them are doing a pretty good job, a very good job actually, and some are not, have bigger struggles to. But yes, we're talking to them. I have a list of things that if I'm elected as senator, I'm going to be very, very busy because, as you know, I have been attending the county commission meetings here in the county of Gilmer County and also the Board of Education meetings, and understand what's going on there. Do the same thing across the district, but there's other groups that need to be brought into the fold as well, and that is the Board of Education's people, the Chamber of Commerce, and many counties are actually starting to work together, all of those talking together and putting a plan together because they can define what their needs are. if they work together. As a senator, all I can do is help them at the state level get the funding that's available, et cetera. But they have to come together and help determine what their future is and what their challenges are. But yes, I plan on visiting and being at the Board of Commissioners meetings across the district, no question.
Can you tell voters this? Currently, their state senator in the 51st district is the Republican whip. Okay, the Republican Senate whip. I don't have time to go into explaining that, but that is a pretty high and it's a powerful position in the state Senate, being the whip. As a freshman senator going in, do you think you could be effective, and do you think you can bring the representation to Atlanta for the district and they wouldn't see any lapse in representation because the Senate whip is not in their district?
Well, Brian, I really can't answer that. I can't, because I don't know what the Senate whip has been doing behind the scenes. But I would hope that my position as a senator would have as much respect as any others. And that is the feeling, I think, in North Georgia, is that we need to keep sending the incumbents back because they have the voice and they can bring stuff back to the counties. So I can't guarantee that. I'd like to say that I could, and I'll work very hard to do that, make everything available that we can. But that's an open question at the present time. And that's probably not the answer that I should be giving, but we do need to talk about the reality.
You know what? Sometimes politicians give the answer they shouldn't be giving too many times. I don't know if I should have said that, but I don't think it's unusual to hear somebody give the answer they shouldn't be giving or doesn't apply. Bringing things back to the counties, things of that nature, but you do make a commitment to the 51st district to represent them in every way, from school board to chamber to commissioners to the citizens.
Absolutely. That's what the position is for. That's one of the big functions of the position, is to represent them and to know what they're doing. You have to be there and you have to talk to them and see what the issues are. No question.
All right, now let's lighten this up before we close. All right, let's lighten it up a little bit.
All right.
I have concerns you're becoming a politician. I have concerns, and I'll tell you why. Because I go on Facebook and you've told me 3 places that have the best biscuit. And John, not everybody could have the best biscuit, but I see you eating breakfast somewhere in White County and Lumpkin County, and you got a picture and you say, best biscuit in town. And I'm thinking, oh, quite the politician now. So have you enjoyed meeting the people?
Yes, I have. And by the way, let's get back to the first thing that you said about the Facebook being all kept up and so on. And I got to give my credit to my campaign manager, Margaret Williamson, who has done all of this.
Who was that?
Is that my campaign manager?
Oh, okay.
Campaign manager, Margaret Williamson. And she has been a really big asset to this whole campaign. It wouldn't have gone the way it has except for her. So I want to publicly thank her and certainly encourage you to vote for me, if you haven't by now, by May 24th.
Well, you have definitely shown me a couple of nice places in the district I should stop and get a cup of coffee, a biscuit, or even maybe a burrito. So I've enjoyed seeing you in your travels. And before we leave, let me just give you this last opportunity to take just a minute to tell the citizens or ask for their vote or close in any way that you have planned.
Well, I just close by saying that I'm running, and I said at the very beginning, I'm running to give you a choice. The current senator has run unopposed for a number of years, and we've seen what the results have been. And so I just felt that it was time to step up and say, do we want to continue with the continued taxation, the continual representation that we have? It's your choice, and I'm giving you a voice that I'll be a strong fighter for you in the Atlanta legislature, in the Senate. So that's why I'm running, and it's up to you, and I really would like your vote. I think I'll do a great job for you, and I'm looking forward to it. So again, it's John Williamson, and I am running for the state Senate in 51st District. Thank you.
I did say we were going to close, but one question did come to mind earlier, and I forgot to enter it in. I think it's pretty big. How will you stay connected with the 51st District? Will you hold town halls? Will you hold coffee shop meetings? I mean, how will you stay connected to the citizens of 51st District to keep them informed about what's going on?
Well, Yes, of course, I'd like to be at all the civic meetings and be invited. As a senator, you can be invited after you're elected because it's not a political issue, it's sort of an informal, informational issue, and you can be invited to the Lions Club and all of the civic centers, Chamber of Commerce, and those are the ones that one needs to be at and give them an update when you're invited. So that's certainly a big part of it. The other part that I like to do is I mentioned this representative down in South Georgia that puts out a newsletter. And if you sign up for it, he will tell you the legislative issues that are coming up, the pros and the cons, and what he feels is best for the district and how he votes. And you can choose to agree with him or not, but at least it's out there so that the people know it's transparency. They'll know what's being considered. So that's the other part of the getting the word out that I would plan to do.
Mr. Williamson, as we tell all candidates here at FetchYourNews.com, we wish you well and we thank you for your willingness to serve. Okay?
And thank you very much for your cooperation, Brian, in this campaign.
I always enjoy doing the interviews and bringing those to you. We will have this on Fetch Your News later today. This will be cut out. You'll be able to find it under Election 2016, every county. We'll go ahead and put it under all the counties because the district is a big district, so whatever county you're in, under the button Election 2016, you'll be able to find this. I'm your host, BKP. Good morning from the office. We're going to take a brief break, and then we're going to come back and wrap up the show. I have some final thoughts on today's show. I'm your host, BKP. Lonnie, take us to break.